Welcome to Native Oklahoma, a unique, first-of-its-kind project produced by tribes here in our state. 6 tribes are represented in this half-hour show, with each contributing its own story. The pieces you'll see here vary widely. Some are in a news magazine style, some a film style, and one is more of a kind of public service announcement. Still, they're all connected, with each bringing its own sense of pride, respect, and devotion to Native cultures. We start with the Osage Nation and their story of a dance very significant to their people.
You know, our Osage people, they didn't have a sense of time. They went by the sun, our grandpa, Huitzico, and there was 3 different times when our people used to pray, they said. And early in the morning was one of those times. There was a certain aspect about it, a certain color that comes in there. It's kind of right when the sun's coming up. They say that's the time that our old folks used to pray. A sense of another day's here, and they asked God, you know, to pity them, and God pitied them that they seen another day to come up. You know, the sun's coming up, they got to see that.
They always said, "Wahoy bahanli gachapi." I mean, keep that respect in front of you.
Hey yo yo hey hey yo hey hey yo yo hey hey yo hey hey yo yo hey hey yo hey yo hey 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 yo hey hey yo hey yo yo hey.
All of our ways, Eloshka and our namings, and we just put a baby on the board last weekend, and it's all about respect. It's all about Wahoy and the things that we do and the things that we cherish, and we embrace those things, and they're going to help us to go a long ways. I think if a person stays with their ways, I think you'll see a lot of success in what you do.
These teachings of our Elonska dance, you know, we say that this is a place is a place where our family grows up, and our young people grow up in there, and there's teachings and values that go in this dance that we have, and as they learn these teachings, they learn how to respect one another and how to love one another and how to get along with one another. And as they grow up in there, they're able to take their teachings and they take it out into this outside world and apply it to their daily lives. And to me, that really helps them with their lifestyle, the way they carry themselves and the way they present themselves out into this world, this society that we have out here, out in the mainstream America. And that's kind of where we say that Wahoy fits in there, the love and the respect. And as you grow up in there, you learn this, and you're taught by this Elonska here. It's got a way about it. It's got a teaching about it. And our old folks used to say, there's a teaching in here. And as you grow up in here and as you take these positions, you will understand that as you get older.
You start out as a water boy, or and wind up, you might be head committeeman or something. It's all about enjoying yourself and being someplace that's worthwhile with what you're doing. And it's kind of a simple little deal. That's all you're looking for, is something worthwhile, and something you can raise your family in and enjoy life. You can grow up in there. You can grow up in that church. You can grow up in the Eloshka and those kind of things.
You know, our people depend upon this Elonska dance, this dance here. It's the hub or the glue that keeps our people together, or the fabric that keeps our people together as we all gather one time a year. And we all look forward to this month of June. This drum calls our people in. They say this drum, when you start this drum, our people start to come, and as they come, they get to come home and rekindle their their cultural way of life and get to visit with one another again and break bread with one another again and talk about their ancestors and talk about what's going on with them and their daily lives. This is a time for them to get together and to share stories.
Preserving native cultures requires education. There's no doubt about that. Tribal leaders of each generation must push themselves to attain the skills necessary to lead their people. That's presented in this next message from the Ponca Tribe.
Three in 10 Native students drop out of school.
Education is important to preserve our culture.
Education is important to preserve our language.
Education is important to getting a good job and providing for my family.
Education is important to preserve our history.
Education is our future.
Build a nation. Stay in school.
Many elements of Native American culture have disappeared forever, but the American buffalo remains. This next story from the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes is about their efforts in bringing this respected animal back into their lives.
These buffalo eat quite a bit. They eat quite a bit. Well, we most got hit there.
Francis Hamilton likes getting a close look at his herd, just not too close.
You got to make sure you got to keep your eyes open. I know you can't just relax around these guys.
Now, if they start charging me, you're gonna let me know, right?
Oh, yeah.
You gonna tell me if one sneaks up on me?
You see me dodge, you see me go down, you follow me.
Okay. He says the tribe's buffalo herd is looking better all the time.
They look good. They're all nice and healthy. They look better. Every time we come out here, they look better. They're more plump. We don't want them fat. We want them plump. Nice and plump for the people.
We have like 700, 800 pounds sold to Head Start.
The Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes sell buffalo meat to tribal programs like Diabetes Wellness and Head Start. They also sell it to nearby Darlington School.
It depends on what kind of supply we have up here. Like Diabetes will ask for so many pounds of meat. They don't care if it's ground or brisket or roast or steaks. It's just by weight.
At a store, how much would that run you?
For a pound of burger, it's about $9.
That for 3 patties, that would be at $9?
$9. It's very, very good meat. It's lean, it's nutritious, and it's old school for our folks, you know.
And buffalo meat is not the only thing stored in Chester's freezer.
Yeah, it came off of probably about a 18 to 2,200 pound animal.
This hide is just one of many harvested from the animals. It's going to be used for ceremonial purposes. These buffalo skulls, also used by the tribes, can fetch upwards of $200 each from some artists. Sometimes referred to as the Walmart of the Plains, the buffalo provided everything the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes needed for survival in the old days. And that's not an understatement.
Like this was the buffalo tail used as a fly swatter. Like this was the buffalo horn used to pour water. This was a flesher. This was the lower leg of the buffalo that scraped the meat off the hide. This item was the buffalo teeth used as a decoration. This was the bladder that they used to carry water.
There's another pregnant one right here. This one's pregnant.
I love watching them when I come to work and just looking and seeing how beautiful they are, and even the baby calves that we're getting.
Those soon-to-be-born calves will help the herd grow to over 500 in just a few months. That larger number means more responsibility, but it also means more benefits to the tribes.
Today, there's buffalo dealers all over the United States, and they're in it for the money, you know. But this is part of our heritage, our history from yesterday, still here today.
Makes me think about our people back in the day when we're having a hard time rounding them up, and they just had a horseback, and they didn't have the modern facilities that we've got today.
They probably did a better job.
Yeah, they did. You know, they did an excellent job. You know.
Sustaining a tribe's history is an important and sometimes overwhelming task. Much has been lost over the past 100+ years right here in Oklahoma. But the Cherokee Nation recently uncovered a very tangible piece of their own.
The Cherokee Nation has begun the task of recovering the original site of Principal Chief John Ross's home in Park Hill. Cherokee Nation recently purchased the land, and it is possible it could become a historic site.
Trying to delineate what's historical, what's not historical, and hopefully find the footprint and be able to interpret the original site where our old chief lived. And through the project we found out there's even more here than we thought, and so rewarding after all these years of wondering what was up there on that hill. Now we own the land, it's back where it should be with the tribe, and hopefully we'll be free to explore it and interpret what's here and share it with everybody.
Coming There believes there were lots of historic sites in Park Hill that were forgotten about after the Civil War. A cemetery has also been located down the hill from the cottage and is believed to be part of a freedman cemetery. It may be one of the oldest in Cherokee County. People from the Institute of Native American Studies at the University of Georgia are helping to map out the footprint of the cemetery and the John Ross home by using ground-penetrating radar and gradiometers to see what is beneath the ground while not disturbing anything. John Ross, principal chief of the Cherokees from 1828 to 1866, presided over a period of constant change and difficulty. The Ross family became the most prominent citizens of Park Hill and of the entire Cherokee Nation. Chief Ross began construction on his Park Hill home, named Rose Cottage, after purchasing the land in 1839. The large house sat on a hill shaded by oaks and elms and had columns reminiscent of a Georgia mansion. The driveway was lined with several species of roses, which gave the home its name.
The house faced north, so that it faces what's now that farmhouse up there. Here's a brick that shows fire damage. You know, Rose Cottage was burned during the Civil War, and when brick is burned, it gets a glaze on it. So here's a little piece that has some glaze on it.
Cherokee Nation is in the process of clearing away debris from the land to get a better idea of what is beneath. There is a lot more work to be done in the coming months, and many more things to be discovered about the chief and his home.
For over a century, Native Americans have been represented in the movie and TV industry, though not always the way they wanted to be. But behind the lights, the makeup, and the wardrobe, some Native Americans have made their mark as well, like our next subject, who's representing the Kiowa tribe.
I'm Russell Bates, Kiowa Native American writer from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I've worked in Hollywood both as a writer and an actor. I've written for about 20 television series in my time, and I was in 7 movies as an actor, and just generally have been very, very lucky to find a career that I could satisfy and that could satisfy me.
Leave him alone. It was John's mistake.
How badly is he hurt?
Just his pride.
I used to write in school and never thought of it at all as something that I might want to do as a career. I was in college, was drafted, entered the Air Force, and became a missile technician stationed in the Florida Panhandle. After a terrifying accident in the missile shop, I was in the hospital for 9 months. As therapy, they asked me if I had a hobby, and I said I once tried to write science fiction stories. They got me a typewriter and a bunch of paper, and I wrote science fiction all day long. Somewhere along the line, I stopped just typing and said, I'm a writer. At the beginning of 1969, I'd only been out of the Air Force 6 months. All of a sudden, I found myself in Los Angeles, working at Kaiser Permanente Hospital on Sunset Boulevard, and going to class at nights at the Writers Guild to learn how to write for TV. I was only in the school 3 months, and a story of mine was seen by this one producer. He hired me as his trainee, and I found myself working at Universal Studios on a series called The Name of the Game. That began it all, and I worked 12 years in the industry writing for some 20 to 30 television shows. It was when I was accepted into the open door classes at the Writers Guild that I met Gene Roddenberry, Gene L. Kuhn, and Dorothy Fontana. When it came time, some 4 years later, for another Star Trek series, the animated one for Saturday morning children's shows.
Space, the final frontier.
Since I was Native American, they wanted a Native American Star Trek story. Well, I allied with a young filmmaker named David Wise, and the two of us wrote a teleplay called How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, where the Mayan god Kukulkan returns in Star Trek's time, intent on destroying all of mankind because they had disobeyed him. The Enterprise meets him in deep space, and he captures them, and it's up to them to convince him that he's wrong.
Kukulkan! Mr. Walking Bear, how do you know who's aboard that ship?
I am a Comanche captain. I've studied the histories of many ancient Earth peoples, especially my own. That ship out there bears a strong resemblance to a god in Mayan and Aztec legends, Kukulkan.
Captain.
This story was given to Filmation Studios for the animated Star Trek. The episode was produced, and within a year, it won an Emmy Award. And it was the first major Emmy ever won by any Star Trek series, and now is the only major Emmy Award that they ever have won.
Where are your weapons of destruction? Use them on me if you dare.
We have no weapons, and if we did, we would use them only with reason.
Where is your hate?
Star Trek teaches that man will learn the error of his ways and no longer destroy the peoples that he meets. And for Native Americans, then, that's hopeful, that what they had to suffer will not be suffered by anyone else in the future. And that basically, I think, is the attraction that Star Trek held for its audience. Hope, peace, and long life. I'm hoping that from my stories I show that Native Americans exist alongside the rest of the peoples of the world, taking part in this world as it exists, and will continue to do so for quite a long time to come. What I'll leave behind is a legacy of stories that still will continue to teach even after I have departed this earth. Because there's one thing that I can say. Time and life may still a writer's hand, but not his voice.
Thoughts, words, pictures, and even ideas can be contained in books. They can transport us to places that we could never physically go. The Choctaw Nation gives us our last story, and a book in their history capable of carrying them to a spiritual place.
Hatakashputama, ho minti, all people, come. Hatakashputama, yakne achukmakat, abba talayashki, ho minti. He said, you all come, there is a good place up in heaven. Hatakashmomama, Jesus, Emanompa, Hashyeme Polashke, Ho Yemme. It says, believe in Jesus, in His Word.
When you sing these songs,
It's like way down inside of you, awakens, and you draw strength from it, and it livens you up, and it just wakes you up because it's a praise unto God Almighty. We can feel the presence of our ancestors. We feel the passion, the pain, the happiness of knowing where they are.
We can pick up these songs and begin to relive what they lived as far as the strength that they got out of it.
The first contact that the Choctaw people had with the Christian religion was when Spanish conquistadors came into Choctaw country in the mid-1500s. Most Choctaw people didn't convert because Choctaw people felt like they were being pushed into it. It wasn't a free will type of thing. So Catholicism didn't have many inroads with the Choctaw people early on. In 1818, Choctaw Chief Mashola Tubby and also David Folsom asked the United States if they would be willing to send missionaries into Choctaw country to set up schools. Initially, Choctaw people had wanted these missionaries to teach them how to read and write, but over time, Choctaws started to see a value in the message that they taught in the Christianity.
All people seek some type of God, and so I believe that they knew that there was sovereign power somewhere, and so when the missionaries brought the gospel of Christianity, I believe that it just connected.
And one of the things that the Presbyterian missionaries did was learn the Choctaw language, so they could convert Choctaws into Christianity in the Choctaw language. And this was very important, that sign of respect. And the first book ever published in the Choctaw language was a book of Christian hymns.
A number of different people contributed to make the Choctaw hymnal. Between 1829 and 1856, there were 7 versions. The 3 principal people who worked on it were Alfred Wright, Loring S. Williams, and Cyrus Byington. These were non-native missionaries who came into Choctaw country and spent all or much of their lives with the Choctaw people. And then there were also a number of Choctaw people who contributed songs too. One of them was Pliny Fisk. He was the first native Presbyterian minister. Peter Pitchlin, Reverend Israel Folsom, David Folsom, and Jonathan Edwards Dwight.
To me, Cyrus Byington was an awesome man used by God.
It's a powerful thing for a man to spend his whole life, among the people that he learned to love. He learned the language very fluent. He understood the Choctaw. He became Choctaw.
That also helped the Choctaws to be receptive to the gospel because they saw their language in writing.
God touched someone that was non-Indian to take part and begin to put this where we could preserve the language.
You have to appreciate that these writers were translating Choctaw language into concepts of Christianity for which the language wasn't necessarily developed originally. But when you have the hymns, you're not only causing Choctaw language to fit the terminology of Christianity, but you also have to make it match the meter of the song. And the way that they did that and the depth of meaning and the spirit that's there and the intelligence are incredible.
The words that we sang in Choctaw, they're not ones that you would find in the English tunes. The only place that Choctaw language was spoken was at the church, and the church became the keeper of the word. 48 is a prayer calling upon the Holy Spirit to come and awaken the heart. It's not a translation of Amazing Grace.
On the Trail of Tears, the hymns were sung, and many of the stories talk about around a campfire in the morning, some of the hymns would be sung before they even started to walk as a way to give them strength during the day. And as the snow would fall and the rain would fall, oftentimes the hymns would get the people through.
And so as they were driven out of their homes and they were coming this way, they began to sing 112. Antat bilia li chi tokio. I'm not put here to live here forever. And so the song became a song not only of death, but it also was a song of hope because it talked about when they would arrive in their new home.
So when we think of the Trail of Tears today, one of the things that comes to mind is the strength of the good Lord and the strength of Christ and our faith in Christianity that kept us alive as a people.
The Choctaw hymns are incredibly deep. I didn't come into direct contact with them until my early 20s. The more I study them, the more I learn, the more I sing them, the more important they become to me. And part of this comes about as a result of my wife. She's been singing them since she was a little girl, her entire life. The depth of the words is just incredible. You're not only putting Christian concepts into a Choctaw language that wasn't originally designed to communicate those, but you're also putting it all in the verse of the song. And the way that these songwriters did this, be they European missionaries or Choctaw ministers, is just absolutely incredible. There's a vast depth of intelligence there and also a spiritual connection. You know, they're obviously divinely inspired. Today, singing these hymns is just part of being a Choctaw person, and it's part of being involved in the Choctaw community. For many of the people in my generation, this is the only regular contact they have with that deep fluency in the Choctaw language. There are people my age who sing the Choctaw hymns. They know them by heart, but they don't know what they mean. But through doing this, they connect with their ancestors, they know the spirit of the song, so they're worshiping God, and they're also practicing that deep part of the Choctaw language.
Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this small glimpse into the fascinating world of Native American stories right here in our state.